Working the night shift at the gas station on the edge of Las Vegas was supposed to be easy. I was all alone, and it gets really quiet at night. The store is usually empty, and I don't get a lot of customers far from the casino staff that occasionally grab a snack or a bite to eat. However, this time, I had a strange feeling about this night. Some unsettling feeling has latched onto me. It was dead silent. The desert was too quiet. No insects, no coyotes, just an eerie silence. I'd worked the graveyard shift for months and thought I'd seen it all. Drunk tourists, lonely truckers, and the occasional wanderer. But this night was different. Just after midnight, a strange man walked in. He was tall, with a pale face and hollow eyes. He moved smoothly, like he was gliding. He was wearing a suit and a hat like he was a mobster. He also drove a really old vintage black Mercedes with a very strange license plate that I have never seen before. It had some strange symbols on it. Unlike any regular license plate that you normally see, he walked inside and he didn't say a word. He just stared at me and gave me a look that made my stomach churn. When he paid for his gas, he handed me an old, damp $100 bill that felt like it had been buried for years. As he left, I noticed something odd. The gas pump he was using showed 666 in glowing red digits. I didn't pay much attention to it. About an hour later, the store's lights flickered and went out, leaving me in darkness for a moment before they sputtered back to life. The temperature dropped, and I could see my breath, even though it was a hot desert night. Then I heard it. Faint whispers like 1,000 voices speaking at once. I strained to listen but couldn't make out any words. It felt like the whispers were surrounding me, filling me with dread. I could not tell where the whispers were coming from, but they eventually stopped. At 3:33 a.m., I stepped outside to check the pumps, hoping the fresh air would clear my head. However, my heart sank as I saw something really strange. I saw an old lady in a white dress, and her head was covered like she was a witch or something. I did not see a car nearby. She walked here alongside the highway in the middle of the night. Why in the world would anyone be here? I wondered, at this time of night. Especially an old lady. She was standing near the pump about maybe 15 feet away from me. I was terrified, but I concealed carry a Glock. I had my hands on my gun in a defensive mode, and I yelled, "Hey, do you need help? Are you lost?" The old lady didn't say anything, but she turned around slowly. She looked at me and smiled. She said in a sinister voice, "You have been marked. We have chosen you." Then she ran away really fast before I said anything. The way she moved, it was not human-like. It was as if she vanished. I was very unsettled by this encounter. A few moments later, the sky lit up. The way the sky lit up looked like it had a triangle formation of some kind. There was a bright light in every corner, like was surrounded by it. It lasted about 1 second, then it vanished, the same way the old lady vanished. Very rapidly and abruptly, I ran back into the store, heart pounding, and locked the door behind me. I fumbled for my phone, desperate to call for help, but the screen was filled with static. The whispering returned, louder and more insistent, and I felt presence behind me. Turning slowly, I saw the gaunt man from earlier standing at the entrance, accompanied by several shadowy figures. The old woman in the white dress had returned. Their eyes glowed with an otherworldly light as they moved closer, surrounding me. I backed into the counter, my heart pounding as the whispers grew louder and more insistent. "I'm armed," I yelled. "Don't come any closer." Undeterred, they moved closer, their presence almost suffocating. They were inches away from the counter now. I drew my gun, but suddenly it felt like I couldn't control. It was as if an invisible force had taken over me. I looked at the gaunt man, who wore a sinister smile. In a calm, chilling voice, he said, "You have nothing to be afraid of. We are not here to hurt you." "Then what do you want?" I demanded, my voice trembling. "The divine has chosen you to be one of us. You will possess godly powers. You'll have everything you ever desired," he replied. "However, there is one condition. You must agree to join us willingly and embrace the darkness that lies within you." My mind raced. This couldn't be real. But the power in his voice, the intensity of their gaze made it hard to deny. "What do you mean by embrace the darkness?" I asked, trying to stall for time. The old woman stepped forward, her eyes piercing into mine. "It means you must let go of your fears, your doubts, and your humanity. You must allow the shadows to become a part of you. Only then will you gain the strength and knowledge that we possess. A shiver ran down my spine, and if I refuse, the gaunt man's smile widened. That is not an option. You have been marked. This is your destiny. The room seemed to close in on me, the earth thick with an oppressive weight. I could feel the pull of their words, the temptation of power, and the terror of what they were asking of me. My hand trembled around the gun, the barrel now feeling like a lead weight. Why me? I whispered, barely audible over the cacophony of whispers. Your soul has been cursed with the spell, the old woman said. A part of me wanted to believe them, but another part, the part that clung to my humanity, screamed at me to resist. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. What, my soul is cursed? But how? The old lady said, yes, my child, your soul has been cursed with the devil's mark. The gaunt man's eyes gleamed. You will undergo a transformation. Your body, your mind, your soul will become one with the shadows. You will gain abilities beyond your wildest dreams. How? I asked, feeling a cold dread settle in my stomach. He extended a hand toward me. By taking the first step into the darkness, surrender your soul, and behold the mark of the divine. It looked like I had no choice. With trembling hesitation, I reached out and grasped the man's hand. The moment our hands connected, an icy shiver raced down my spine, thoughts flooded my mind, each one colliding. I felt an insane sensation like I was being consumed by a cosmic force, my consciousness expanding beyond the confines of my physical form. Suddenly, I was one with the universe. I could see the intricate web of existence, every thread of fate intertwining and unraveling. It felt like I was being fed all the knowledge of the cosmos. Answers to questions I had never even thought to ask blossomed in my mind. I saw the future unfold before me, the dazzling array of possibilities branching out like a fractal. The past stretched out behind me, every moment etched in perfect clarity. Visions of heaven and hell flashed before my eyes, their ethereal landscapes vivid and surreal. I could see souls wandering these realms, their fates sealed by the choices they had made in life. I was now part of the divine, and I could feel its immense power coursing through me. The limitations of my mortal existence had been stripped away, leaving behind a being of pure energy and infinite potential. A part of me wanted to believe them, but another part, the part that clung to my humanity, screamed at me to resist. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. What, my soul is cursed? But how? The old lady said, yes, my child, your soul has been cursed with the devil's mark. The gaunt man's eyes gleamed. You will undergo a transformation. Your body, your mind, your soul will become one with the shadows. You will gain abilities beyond your wildest dreams. How? I asked, feeling a cold dread settle in my stomach. He extended a hand toward me. By taking the first step into the darkness, surrender your soul, and behold the mark of the divine. It looked like I had no choice. With trembling hesitation, I reached out and grasped the man's hand. The moment our hands connected, an icy shiver raced down my spine, thoughts flooded my mind, each one colliding. I felt an insane sensation like I was being consumed by a cosmic force, my consciousness expanding beyond the confines of my physical form. Suddenly, I was one with the universe. I could see the intricate web of existence, every thread of fate intertwining and unraveling. It felt like I was being fed all the knowledge of the cosmos. Answers to questions I had never even thought to ask blossomed in my mind. I saw the future unfold before me, the dazzling array of possibilities branching out like a fractal. The past stretched out behind me, every moment etched in perfect clarity. Visions of heaven and hell flashed before my eyes, their ethereal landscapes vivid and surreal. I could see souls wandering these realms, their fates sealed by the choices they had made in life. I was now part of the divine, and I could feel its immense power coursing through me. The limitations of my mortal existence had been stripped away, leaving behind a being of pure energy and infinite potential. I'm no longer a gas station employee. I realized, the thought echoing in my mind like a distant memory. In an instant, I saw myself standing behind the counter, a mundane figure trapped in the monotony of everyday life. But now I was something more. I floated above the scene, my new form of spectral presence. Wait a minute. I glanced at the fridge vending machine nearby, catching a glimpse of my reflection. To my shock, I didn't see a reflection. My form was swirling in nebulous cloud. I was no longer bound by the constraints of flesh and bone. I was an ethereal being, a manifestation of the shadows that had embraced me. I turned back to the gaunt man, his sinister smile now replaced with a look of approval. "You have embraced the darkness," he said, his voice resonating with an otherworldly timbre. "Welcome to the divine." The shadowy figures around him bowed their heads in unison, acknowledging my transformation. The old woman in the white dress stepped forward, her eyes glowing with a soft, otherworldly light. "You are now one of us," she said. "The darkness is your ally, and the shadows will guide you." I felt a surge of power within me, a newfound strength that pulsed with the rhythm of the universe. I was no longer the person I had been, but something far greater. I was a guardian of the night, a wielder of cosmic forces beyond comprehension. As I floated there, my form shimmering in the dim light, I knew that my life had changed forever. The divine had claimed me, and in its embrace, I had found a purpose far greater than I could have ever imagined. It was supposed to be a perfect night for stargazing. The Nevada desert, far from the lights of Las Vegas, offered a clear view of the night sky. My friends and I had planned this trip for weeks, eager to escape the city and gaze at the stars. We arrived just before sunset, setting up our blankets and telescopes on the soft sand. As the sun set, the sky turned dark blue, filled with twinkling stars. The Milky Way stretched above us, and we lay back, amazed by the view. As the night went on, we took turns looking through the telescopes, pointing out constellations, and sharing stories about the cosmos. It was peaceful, the quiet of the desert broken only by our whispers and the occasional breeze. Around midnight, we noticed something strange. Bright lights appeared on the horizon, moving in a way that no aircraft should. At first, we thought it was a plane, but the lights moved erratically, darting across the sky. It formed a triangle formation. "Do you see that?" Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. "Yeah," I replied, my heart pounding. "What is it?" We watched in silence as the lights grew closer, revealing themselves as a cluster of glowing orbs. They hovered above us, casting an eerie, bluish light over the desert. The air grew cold, and we felt uneasy. Suddenly, one of the orbs descended quickly, stopping just a few feet above the ground. It was smooth and metallic, about the size of a car. The surface rippled like liquid mercury. A beam of light shot out from the orb, enveloping us in a blinding glow. I felt a strange sensation, like a low vibrating through my body. My friends and I were paralyzed, unable to move or speak. The light faded, and I found myself inside a strange, dimly lit room. The walls were metallic and seamless, with strange symbols etched into them. My friends were there too, looking as bewildered as I felt. A figure emerged from the shadows, a tall, slender old man. He was wearing a suit. He had large, black eyes and pale, almost translucent skin. It moved gracefully, its gaze fixed on us. I felt a surge of fear, but also an inexplicable sense of calm. The man raised a hand, and a holographic image appeared, showing the solar system and distant galaxies. It communicated without words, projecting images and feelings directly into our minds. We saw their home planet, a world of advanced technology and serene beauty. We felt their curiosity about Earth and their desire for peaceful contact. Time seemed to blur. We experienced the flood of images and emotions, learning about their culture, their travels. Then, as suddenly as it began, it was over. The light enveloped us again, and we found ourselves back in the desert, staring up at the night sky. The orbs were gone, leaving no trace of their presence. We sat in stunned silence, trying to process what had just happened. The night felt surreal, the stars above us unchanged but somehow different, as if they held new secrets. Did that really happen? Mark finally broke the silence, his voice shaky. "I think it did," I replied, still feeling the echo of the encounter. We packed up our gear in a daze, the excitement of stargazing replaced by the incredible experience we had just shared. As we drove back to Las Vegas, the memory of that night, of the glowing orbs, and the alien encounter stayed with us, a reminder that we are not alone in the vastness of space. I was working as a security guard in one of Las Vegas's busiest casinos, Paris. But lately, I'd noticed something off. It started as a feeling. An unsettling presence that seemed to lurk in the corners of the casino, just out of sight. One night, during my usual rounds, I noticed the old woman at the far end of the slot machines. She was dressed in an elegant white gown, her skin pale and her eyes unnaturally dark. She stood perfectly still, watching the players with an intensity that made me shiver. When I tried to approach her, she vanished into a crowd, leaving behind a cold chill in the air. I shook off the encounter, convincing myself it was just a trick of the light. But the feeling persisted, growing stronger with each passing night. Shadows seemed to move on their own, and I often caught glimpses of figures in the reflective surfaces of the slot machines, only to turn and find no one there. One particularly slow night, I decided to investigate. The casino was quieter than usual, the usual clamor of voices and machines reduced to a low murmur. I headed to the basement, a place most employees avoided. The air grew colder with each step, and the dim lighting cast eerie shadows on the walls. I reached the storage room at the end of the hall and opened the door. The room was filled with old slot machines, discarded tables, and other forgotten pieces of the casino's past. As I stepped inside, the door slammed shut behind me, plunging the room into darkness. My flashlight flickered, and I felt. A cold breeze brushed past me. Then I heard a faint whisper like someone speaking in a language I couldn't understand. I turned, and there she was. The old woman in the white gown. Her eyes were darker than the deepest night, and she seemed to float above the ground. "What do you want?" I managed to stammer, my voice barely audible over the pounding of my heart. "We are watching you. The Divine will test you," she said in an evil, sinister voice. "What? The Divine? Test me? What for?" She didn't answer, but the whispers grew louder, more insistent. Shadows began to swirl around her, taking shape and forming figures. Dark, twisted entities that seemed to suck the light out of the room. They moved closer, their eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. Panic set in, and I tried to open the door, but it wouldn't budge. The figures closed in, their whispers filling my mind with a sense of dread and despair. I felt their icy touch on my skin, and my vision started to blur. Just when I thought I was lost, the door flew open, and the lights flickered back on. The figures vanished, leaving only the cold air. I stumbled out of the room, gasping for breath, and hurried back to the main floor. The casino was back to its usual lively state, the noise and lights a stark contrast to the darkness I had just encountered. I tried to tell my supervisor about what happened, but he dismissed it as stress and overwork. No one believed me, and I couldn't blame them. It sounded insane, but I knew what I saw. And every night since, I felt their presence lurking in the shadows, watching, waiting. The casino was their domain, and I was just a visitor in their world. The dark entities of the Las Vegas casinos were real, and they were not to be disturbed. I have been wondering every day since I left. What does it mean they will test me? I moved to Las Vegas for a new beginning and took a job as a bartender at a busy casino. The money was good, and the constant activity kept me busy. After a few months, I noticed strange things happening. Lights flickered, shadows moved on their own, and I felt like I was being watched. One night, while closing the bar, I found an old, worn-out book behind a shelf. The cover had strange symbols, and the pages were filled with handwritten notes and drawings of dark rituals. Curious, I took the book home and spent hours trying to understand it. It talked about black magic, spells, and rituals that could change fate and reality. I felt the book was connected to the strange things at the casino. A few nights later, I overheard two high rollers in the VIP lounge talking about a secret meeting where people practiced forbidden magic. I realized they were talking about black magic. I decided to follow them. They led me to an old, abandoned hotel on the edge of the city. The building was falling apart, with boarded-up windows and crumbling walls. I sneaked inside, careful not to be seen. Inside, I smelled incense and heard low chanting. I crept down a dark hallway and peeked into a large, dimly lit room. People in black robes stood in a circle around a strange, glowing orb. The high rollers joined them, and the leader of the group raised his hands. The chanting grew louder, and the orb glowed brighter. I felt a powerful force pulling me into the room. I stumbled inside, and the chanting stopped. Everyone stared at me. The leader, a tall man with piercing eyes, stepped forward. "You shouldn't be here," he said. "This is not a place for outsiders." "Well, I found this book," I said, holding it up. I wanted to know what it meant. The leader grabbed the book and smiled as he looked through. "You have no idea what you found," he said. "This is the Arcane Art. This book contains forbidden knowledge about the universe." The others murmured in agreement, their eyes on me. The leader gestured for me to come closer. "You've seen too much. We have no choice but to bring you on." I hesitated, scared but tempted. The leader extended his hand, and I took it. From this day on, my life has changed completely. Over the course of the following weeks, he learned their secrets. I mastered spells and rituals that could control locked minds, and even summon dark entities. The power was addictive, and I quickly became important in the group. But with power came danger. I discovered that the leader planned to use the dark magic to control the whole city. I couldn't let that happen, but at the same time I wanted to see it happen. One night during a big ritual, I accidentally knocked one of the orbs, and it shattered. The other members looked at me. They were scared and angry, and said, "You fool. You have no idea what you have unleashed back in this world. May the divine have mercy on your soul," said one of them. I panicked. "I don't know what I have done. It was an accident. I didn't mean to." The oldest member said, "Your soul has been cursed." "What? No, this can't be happening." No, the orb has released dark energy." The room erupted in chaos. What happened next was very sinister. I saw an old lady wearing a white gown. She had a few spectral beings around them. They were looking around as if they were searching for someone until they looked at each other. I was observing the spectral beings, and I was shocked. I couldn't believe what I was looking at. The old lady said, "You freed us from the spell. We are forever in your debt." Me. "I don't know what I did." The old lady and the spectral beings bowed to me as if I was their king. The divine members were in disbelief from what they saw. Then the lady and the being have vanished in the air, and the members of the cult have decided to opt me of the group. I was no longer part of them, and I never saw them ever again at the casino. We had spent the night in the Nevada desert, far from the city lights, watching the stars. It had been a peaceful night until the strange orbs appeared in the sky, moving erratically and filling us with unease. The encounter with the glowing orbs and the tall, slender being had left us shaken. As we packed up and headed back to the city, we tried to make sense of what had happened. It was late, and the highway was empty. The desert stretched out on either side, an endless expanse of darkness. The only light came from our headlights cutting through the night. We were still on edge, our conversation filled with nervous laughter and attempts to rationalize what we had seen. That's when we saw her, a lone figure walking along the side of the highway. She was hunched over, her gait slow and deliberate. As we got closer, we saw that she was an old lady, dressed in tattered clothes that flapped in the wind. Her hair was wild and gray, and her skin looked weathered and pale. "Should we stop?" Sarah asked, her voice tinged with concern. "Yeah, we can't just leave her out here," Mark replied, slowing the car. As we pulled over, the old lady turned to face us. Her eyes were dark and empty, and a chill ran down my spine. I rolled down the window and called out to her. "Ma'am, do you need help?" I asked. She didn't respond immediately, just stared at us with those unsettling eyes. Then, slowly, she walked up to the car. Her voice, when she spoke, was a raspy whisper. "You shouldn't be out here," she said. "The desert holds many secrets." I felt a sudden wave of fear, remembering the strange encounter from earlier. "We saw something strange tonight," I said, unable to keep the tremor out of my voice. "Lights in the sky." The old lady's expression didn't change, but her eyes seemed to grow darker. "The spirits are restless," she said. "The magic is strong tonight." "Magic?" Mark asked, exchanging a nervous glance with Sarah. The old lady nodded. "Dark magic," she said. "I practiced the arts long ago. There are forces at work that you don't understand." Suddenly, the air grew colder, and I felt the same strange sensation from earlier. The feeling of being watched. The old lady stepped back, her eyes never leaving mine. "You've seen too much," she said. "You've been marked." Before we could respond, she turned and walked into the desert, disappearing into the darkness. We sat there, stunned and frightened, unsure of what to do. Finally, Mark started the car again, and we drove back to the city in silence, the weight of her words heavy on our minds. Back in Las Vegas, life returned to normal, but I couldn't shake the feeling of dread. I started researching local legends and found stories about an old witch who lived in the desert, practicing dark magic. People said she could summon spirits and manipulate reality. Weeks passed, and strange things began happening. Shadows moved on their own, whispers filled the night, and the feeling of being watched never left me. I knew the old lady's warning was real. Whatever we had encountered in the desert had followed us back. One night, as I lay in bed, I heard a faint whisper. It was the old lady's voice, repeating the same words, "You've been marked." I bolted upright, my heart pounding. The room was dark, but I could feel a presence. I reached for my phone to call for help, but the screen was filled with static. Suddenly, a cold breeze swept through the room, and the shadows seemed to come alive. I saw her standing at the foot of my bed, her eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. The whispers grew louder, filling my mind with dread. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. The last thing I saw was her reaching out, her long, bony fingers wrapping around my throat. Everything went black. The next morning, my friends found me unconscious, the room filled with strange symbols glowing faintly in the early dawn light. I survived, but I was never the same. The encounter with the old lady and the dark magic left a permanent mark on my soul. The old lady still walks the highways at night, a guardian of the forbidden arts, watching and waiting for those who dared uncover the mysteries of the Nevada desert.